show you the parts, maintenance, adjustment, and setting procedures for a cinch trap, which is used for moles or gophers depending on what size trap you buy. This particular trap is a gopher trap. Now if you look it's fairly simple. Just some wire, sheet metal, and a spring. But to allow you to understand when we go into the setting procedures and the nomenclature and everything, I want to go ahead and show you what the company refers to these parts as far as correct nomenclature. This part of the jaw, this is the jaw end. This is actually the lethal end of the trap if you're a gopher or a mole. This jaw actually stays put. It stays stationary exactly where it is right there. This other jaw is movable. It comes and is sprung backwards and forward. Okay? It's called the active jaw. It extends all the way back over here. As you can see on the cinch trap, there's only one jaw that moves. The other one is stationary. The one that's pointing straight up is a stationary jaw. The one that I'm moving here is called your active jaw. When the trap is in a tunnel, this is the position that your jaws are going to be in. When an animal activates the trigger, trigger would be in this position. The animal is going to go through the jaws and just bump that trigger just a little bit. When we get it all set with the hair trigger, it doesn't take but just a fraction of an inch to move it, and the jaws will close. Like I said, one jaw is stationary, the other one moves, and the result is a fast, ethical, lethal death for that gopher or mole. This is the part that actually gets held by the set wires. To set this trap, we'll show you in a second, but I'm going to move the active jaw back over to this side. I'm going to take the forward set wire and move it over the active jaw, and then place the rear set wire over the forward set wire. Then I'm going to take the trigger, which this is the part that the gopher or mole would touch to activate the trap. It would come through the active jaws, which are going to be open. It would push on the trigger wire, either with its head, feet, or dirt that it's pushing out of the way. But at any rate, hopefully the gopher or mole is in between the active jaw, or in between the jaws when that happens. To hold all this together, you're going to move that trigger wire over the rear set wire, like so. Okay? If this trap does not catch the gopher or mole that you're after, and you've tried everything that I've showed you how to do on the other videos, then your only alternative is that. That's probably the best thing for your problem. Okay, now I'm going to show you some things that you need to take care of before the trap is actually deployed or placed in the ground. Now, I learned this first thing I'm going to show you the hard way. If you will open this trap up partially, you'll notice that from the factory, these jaws are designed to bypass each other, much like shears. However, they don't always do that. I have had one trap that was bent just a little bit off, or something was adjusted just a little bit off, and when I pulled it out of there, I saw the trap had fired partially, and when I pulled it out of the ground, these two jaws were actually stuck together like so. So the mole escaped, or the gopher escaped in that case. So the easiest way to prevent the jaws from mashing together and causing a misfire, or a miss in that case, would be to make sure that those jaws absolutely cannot do that. The way I do it, I take one pair of channel locks on the end there. I just grab a little bit right behind that. I'm going to grab the other part of that and just give it a little okay. Now you can see that the bypass on these jaws, there's no way that they could ever touch each other. There is a definite gap there, but they're still just as lethal to a gopher or a mole. As I'm sure you've already figured out, these traps belong in the ground. It's the only way that they're going to actually catch a gopher or a mole. Most of this is actually in the ground, and at least this part of it, the bottom part, is going to be on the ground. In some cases, if it rains, you're going to have dirt on the trap. There's no way to prevent this trap from rusting. These parts, all of your wires, are high carbon spring steel, the best I can tell. Okay, in other words, they are not stainless steel. They are going to corrode. As far as maintenance of these, anything that is supposed to move against another thing should be lubricated. So what you can do before you put a new trap in the ground is go ahead and lubricate lightly with a silicone type lubricant. Now, once the trap has been in the ground for been in service for a few weeks, it's going to rust, which a little rust is okay. You can maintain it easier than you can fix all the nasty rust stuff. However, if you get a lot of corrosion built up on these trigger wires, you can use a product such as sandpaper or a Scotch-Brite pad, and polish that rust off of there. It doesn't have to be shiny, but what you're after is the part that is supposed to be rubbing up against another part should not have a lot of corrosion on it. It will keep your trap from firing correctly, and it will allow some misses. So you can use just a dab of a silicone lubricant. Put it on your wires there. Pull your trigger back. Push it forward. There. Now the bottom of this active jaw actually is going to touch this forward set wire. So now everything that is supposed to rub against another thing, with the exception of that one little deal there, I'm not quite concerned with that, has some lubricant on it. This thing ought to be ready to roll. Okay, for the setting procedures on the cinch trap, no matter what size it is or what animal it's designed to catch, it should be all the same. What I do, and there's other people that do other things to set these, okay? Here's my method. I place the body of the trap in my right hand, use my left thumb to torque this active jaw over. You do not want to get your thumb or any part of your hand in this area in case the active jaw slips out of your finger. It's going to break whatever is over here. You take your forward set wire and lay it over the active jaw, like so. Take your rear set wire and lay it over the forward set wire, like so. Take the trigger and slide it over the rear set wire. Now, I'm going to back up a little bit and show you a couple things. If you'll look at the back of this, the body of the trap, I have placed a black dot. I want your rear set wire to be sitting on the body of the trap in this location right here. Do not bring it up here above the sheet metal. It will set that way, or it can be set that way, but you need it in front of the sheet metal, sitting right by that dot. Now, we're going to slide the trigger wire over it. At this point, you can let go. It's not going anywhere. To set the cinch trap up with a hair trigger for a more sensitive trigger, here's what I do. The front set wire has a teardrop shape on it right here. I want the teardrop facing to the right. I want the front set wire slid all the way to the rear. I want the end of the front set wire slid all the way to the right, up against that piece of metal right there. Okay? Now, hold that in place. Your rear set wire, I want the teardrop facing me. It's bent this way. I want the rear set wire slid all the way to the right, all the way this way. And I want the end of that set wire sitting on that dot. At this point, what you want to verify is that you actually have spring tension on this wire, on the rear set wire. It's trying to get up away from you. If it does, put your trigger back over the top of it. You want to put your thumb guarding over the wires so you don't have an accident here. You're going to use your finger and you're going to pull the trigger wire back until it is just almost completely off of the rear set wire. Okay? You can do this as you can go as far as you feel comfortable. However, you don't actually do the hair trigger setup until the trap is placed in the ground. Whenever you are dealing with this trap and you're trying to place it in the ground, in the tunnel, you're doing all your maneuvering, you're putting your grass stuff, and you got to watch my other video to see all this stuff. But whenever you are all done preparing this trap to catch the gopher, that is when you drag this trigger back over into its hair trigger position. You can do all the other stuff with the other set wires, putting those in the correct position and all that, but do not put this trap in a hair trigger position until everything else is done and you're ready to trap. You're almost ready to leave that hole. At that point, it's active, it's hot, and it's ready to go. That's it. If you have any questions, drop me a line. But I think that's just about as self-explanatory as we can get. These are really good traps. They should last you for several years if maintained properly. Thanks for watching.